Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Road to Lead. I'm M. Michelle DeRosier. We are excited because today we have our friend Dion Dawson of Dion Chicago Dream. And I promise you, this is going to be a fantastic interview. Dion is fighting food insecurity in Chicago, and he is on the ground with the people. And there is such compassion and energy around his work. And we really wanted to see what that leadership role to the executive director has been for him and how he's making his mission come alive. So welcome, Dion.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm
No
definitely
problem.
excited.
Tell us a little bit about you.
I'm the founder executive director of Dion Chicago Dream. We're a nonprofit based out of Chicago fighting food insecurity. You're about 14, 15 months old now, kicking butt, day-to-day activity, consistency, and I'm having the time of my life.
You're 14, 15 months old. We're 20 months into a pandemic. So you started in the middle of an international crisis.
Yes.
No pressure there.
No, right? I think the good thing about it though is that me not having a philanthropy background actually helped me. I didn't know how daunting it would be. I just knew that, this was the reason I came back from the military. I'm a Navy veteran. My trade
Thank you for
is
your service.
public relations, marketing. And so after being back a few years, I never really felt appreciated. I never really felt like I had my thing. And this is my thing. And it just started from last year. If everybody remembers, Juneteenth was, the first Juneteenth that we were like, we're gonna take pride in, we're gonna celebrate it, it's gonna be our thing. And in the midst of that, one of my little brothers approached me and said, "Hey, what are you doing for the community?" And I was offended. I was like,
"Oh, he called you out."
Called me out. And I immediately, got defensive. I was like, why ask me? I would do anything. But I'm so thankful that that question spurred my life's work. And I thought about it, and immediately within 2 minutes, I said, we're going to feed 100 families. Didn't know how, didn't know what we were going to do. Was totally broke. At the moment, I was working for nights, helping other family members pay bills to survive. Because the first year of the pandemic was a monster, and so decided like, hey, we're gonna do that. So started a GoFundMe, and in 25 hours, we raised $2,500.
Okay, listen. Oh, okay. Where are my math folks? Let me get my calculator. 2,500. 25 hours.
Yeah.
All right. That's 100 an hour for you, for y'all that are so.
Yep. Just to let you know, I went crazy. Everybody, anytime somebody posted something under their status, that's a nice photo, girl. But I got in Messenger, if they had a green bubble, shot them a message. And from there, we were off to the races. Bought about 800 pounds of food, and on July 3rd last year, we fed almost 97 families. All premium items, everything brand new. And logistically, it was the hardest day of my life. It was. I actually have a photo I'm going to share with you after this.
Okay.
Where later that day, I'm just like passed out on my grandmother's porch. I'm just. But it was also the most fulfilling. And from there, I got approached to take a check for $30,000, and I couldn't take it because I wasn't a 501c3, and it crushed me. I felt like I defrauded my community. I felt like, darn, what we could have did with that. And for the first time in my life, I went to my wife and I just said, hey, I'm gonna go for it. And she said, what? And I said, I had no idea, but I don't like that feeling that I felt. And from there, again, we're still broke. Started another raised $1,800 in 6 days. And
awesome.
We were off to the races. Got incorporated August 10th last year, and a little shortly after we received our 501c3 designation. And so, starting out, it's just, I've boiled it down to, no matter the size and scope of the organization, it's always about the problem. It's about, you have to make sure it's not about the mission statement and the vision statement, all the
Mm-hmm.
communication materials. It's about what problem as an organization are you addressing, and
Mm-hmm.
how are you addressing it now, while also simultaneously moving the needle towards where you
Mm-hmm.
that subgenre of the sector in the future. And so for us, it was easy. It was we're solving food insecurity, not hunger, because
Mm-hmm.
a little bit about my past. I mean, my mom struggled with substance abuse on the south side of Chicago. We're the youngest of four
Mm-hmm.
boys, all the way up until I was in the military. I didn't have my own bedroom. We were living with people. I
Mm-hmm.
saw firsthand. I've lived in a crack house before and seen what substance abuse can do to you. And so
Mm-hmm.
for me, I've always been in those food lines. And I
Yeah.
always saw a few things efficiency wise that wasn't right. It wasn't focused on the end user experience.
Interesting.
It wasn't
Okay.
focused on, the flow of, how we're receiving information, how we're building these relationships. It was just focused on the tonnage. But that's
Uh-huh.
because somewhere along the lines, food insecurity and hunger was juxtaposed. It wasn't
Okay.
separated like it should be. Hunger
Okay.
is feeling, food insecurity is the consistent access to healthy food. And so we're talking about
Yeah.
specific, we're talking about
Uh-huh.
access. Now we're talking
Mm-hmm.
about the nuts and bolts of how do we solve a problem. And so for us, our solution to food insecurity has to be the direct opposite of the definition. It has to be
Uh-huh.
consistent, it has to be
Uh-huh.
healthy. And so from
Uh-huh.
there, we were off to the races. And I was sitting in bed, one night last August, and I was looking
Mm-hmm.
for, I was like, what is the thing, we can be known for? And I'll
Yeah.
never. I was laying in bed, and I just started looking on Instagram. That's
Okay.
that's where I saw community fridges, and I saw that they started in the
Mm-hmm.
UK, and they kind of started picking up steam during the pandemic in
Mm-hmm.
the US. And so once I looked at it, I was like, oh my God, I was like, we have to do this. But
Mm-hmm.
the problem with the community fridge model is
Mm-hmm.
that, number one, most community fridges aren't sustained by the organization if it's ran by an organization. Most of them
Yeah.
are started by org and then requires mutual aid. But see, when we're talking about a community like Inglewood on Chicago's South Side that is in the
Mm-hmm.
bottom 10% of average household income, that is a food
Mm-hmm.
desert, that has violence issues, I have
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that if we start this, we're not patting ourselves on the back and then just always
Yeah.
talking about how we started something. And so from there,
Mm-hmm.
I immediately knew what we had to do. And so on September 11th, 2020, we launched Project Dream Fridge. And every single weekday, no matter the weather, no matter if it's a holiday, if it's a weekday, we've opened
Uh-huh.
a Dream Fridge and we filled it with nothing but fresh fruits and vegetables. And so we don't require mutual aid to fill our fridge. We filled it with everything brand new. And from there, this fridge has taken us all around the world. It has us
Mm-hmm.
as the number 2 nonprofit on TikTok.
All
It has
right.
building our movement. But what it was, what I didn't know at the time was this fridge was the qualitative piece to our organization. It required us to
Mm.
get out in front of the people because for so long, two things that we haven't required leadership to be are good people and to be
Yes.
present. And so for us,
Can you
it
repeat the second one?
it's to be a good person and to be present,
Mm-hmm.
be
And to be
around the
present. Yes.
people you're
Mm-hmm.
serving. We're so understanding that their schedule is busy and they have to.
Mm-hmm.
No, we have to change that because if you're a great person and you have this thing, it's very, very important for the people that you're serving to see you, to be able to feel that you're real, because instilling hope in people is one of the pillars of philanthropy. People have to
Mm-hmm.
feel like even if today is bad, tomorrow can
Mm-hmm.
get. And if you're not doing that as an organization, either through your programming or through your presence, then what are you
Mm-hmm.
doing?
As a future leader, as a future formalized leader, listen to his passion for his work
Of course.
and go back to your leadership role, whether you're going to become the executive director of the organization, the founder, or whatever different leadership, formalized leadership role that you're going to have. Are you as committed and as passionate about this mission as you can hear in Dion's voice? I heard a couple of things from you, Dion. In terms of your why, you could not have gone and created an organization that was, let's just say, tutoring.
Yeah.
Or maybe sports. This connected back to something that was felt by you when you were growing up.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that you necessarily have to have that childhood connection to it in order to be a good leader, but there is something deep down where you're like, this mission has to happen because I need to make sure that I am not letting the people I serve down. And that commitment to making sure that, like you said, whether it's raining, whether it's a holiday, you know that the mission of your organization, just in this aspect of it, where that fridge, the community that you serve, they're depending on you to have that fridge open. They're depending on you to have it filled with fresh food. They're depending on you to have a presence there, to feel like there's somebody here who cares. We talk a lot about the idea that emotional intelligence is a thing that we value in a leader, but the way that we treat it, we don't treat it as if we value it. Yet we keep going back. All the study and all the research is saying that we need leaders who are highly emotionally intelligent.
But I think also,
example of it. You're living it.
But I think also it's up to that emotional leader to stand on it, though. And I've been in a lot of different rooms. I've been in a lot of conversations where, I pushed back in a healthy way, and say no. You know what I mean? Like, I will not allow you to devalue me, because when I look at the philanthropic landscape, when it comes to larger organizations talking to the leaders on the ground, the problem is that they're not communicating efficiently and effectively what that leader might be lacking, or what that organization might stumble upon it in clear and succinct ways. So for me, and with our organization, I don't like that when it comes to smaller orgs, it's just accepted that the organization won't be cash positive. If it's within the first 3 to 5 years, they might still be in the red. Lean on loans and credit. You know what I mean? All of these things that have historically and systemically plagued the Black community. How can I build an organization off those pillars when I've seen what is done to our community? Not only do I have emotional intelligence and that empathy that was instilled in me because I saw my mom's journey, but also every day I know I'm lacking something, so I'm always learning. And so it's okay for them to underestimate me, but I can't allow that to stay true throughout my process. They said 1 year ago that I won't be here or I won't know this. It is up to me as a leader, because remember, as a leader, I am only me for the people I serve and the organization I represent. The outside forces only matter as much as I let them. So of course they have an opinion and they have a suggestion. But if I'm not bettering myself for my people, if I'm not bettering myself for my residents, if I'm not bettering myself for the legacy, then I am focused and I am being motivated by the wrong things and people. And thus the results will show. And so, for example, with the fridge, and please tell me to shut up if I'm talking too much.
Oh my goodness. I will be circling back because there are some nuggets that you're dropping here that I want to make sure to highlight, but please go ahead.
Of course. For example, with our fridge, fridge is beautiful and it's qualitative and it allows us to be in the community every day, but that is not our quantitative approach. Our quantitative approach is, where do we see the future of fighting food insecurity? and that is Dream Deliveries. And what Dream
Uh,
Deliveries was a
uh-huh.
response to us not getting a building. We put in a bid and we didn't get it.
Okay.
And when we didn't get it, I said, And that's when I realized that the impact of our organization has to go beyond where I am physically. And so I
Yes.
said,
Mm-hmm.
I said, is the fridge model
Mm-hmm.
scalable and sustainable? And I said, no.
Mm-hmm.
And I said,
Okay.
that is why I won't open up another fridge. And so that is why with Dream Deliveries, what Dream Deliveries is you take the platform and the approach of HelloFresh, which is
Mm-hmm.
our 8-pound hybrid fruit and vegetable box, and
Mm-hmm.
everything is brand new. We buy it, and we deliver that box directly to the resident
Okay.
for free once a week with 5 days worth of produce. And
Okay.
now what that does is a couple things. It stabilizes their intake of healthy vegetables. It
Mm-hmm.
stabilizes the quality because we're not taking donations. No,
Mm-hmm.
then also what it's doing is it's the direct opposite of what food insecurity is. Consistent, healthy access.
There are a couple of things that you have done. You started when you saw a need,
Yeah,
and you knew that that need was immediately. You knew that for it to move beyond the immediate touch point, you needed to figure out a way to make it sustainable and scalable. You were leveraging the work that you were doing on the ground. The takeaway here for people who are getting started, you're never going to be fully prepared and ready to go on day one. You have to
of
start where you are.
of course.
And Dion started where he was. We did the GoFundMe and then realized that there was a limitation when he couldn't take that money because he wasn't a 501c3. And he said, if I'm going to be invested in this and if I'm going to want to see the reach grow, then I'm going to need to formalize. And the way that he formalized it was to become the 501c3. And then moving from that, he saw, okay, how do I reach the community in a way that's going to be tangible? And the fridge was that way. And then from there, he said, it's fine if the mission is that I want to be able to support the people in immediate South Side Chicago. But he came back to the fact that the opposite of food insecurity was that consistency.
Yeah,
So he wanted to make sure that he was consistent in giving people the fresh food, not just food, fresh food, and that it's going to continue to be sustainable for them. When you look at it initially, it feels like that there's no connection, but it's been very systemic and it's been very thoughtful in the process of how you went from we're going to feed these hundreds of folks to we're going to feed, and we're claiming it, we're going to feed these millions of people.
of course.
And there's been a very strategic pathway to it. When you think about the strategy for growing, how do you bring funders in? How do you identify the people who can help you along the way? Because you're only one person, right? You know that the networks are important. So how do you decide who to invite in? And then also, how do you invite them in?
Of course. Well, the when you're looking at being a leader, you have to make sure that you're doing everything for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And the things you aren't doing for a reason. And
Mm-hmm.
so my approach, I'm not going to bring on overhead for the sake of overhead. And so I don't
Mm-hmm.
need, the only people in our organization that's paid right now is our delivery driver and delivery assistant. I'm not paid yet because
Mm-hmm.
I knew that we had the chance to build and go out the gate with impact. But that would
Mm-hmm.
require me making that sacrifice. And so, when it comes to, funders, everybody's a funder. You know what I mean? And when we started in August of last year to December, he didn't have to file a 990, but I
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because as a black man, there's certain things that they expect me not to do. So I said,
Mm-hmm.
no, we're going to do that. So, we were a $23,000 organization. Then from
Oh.
this January um,
Mm-hmm.
to right now, in a thankful way, we're on pace to be a $300,000 organization by the end of this year.
we're just gonna need to come back for a second. All right. When you started this, you raised $2,500.
Yes.
And then that was 13 months ago.
Yeah.
And now we are on pace to be an organization of 300,000.
Yes, with 180,000 in private donations from the public.
From
The public.
individuals who see the work
Yes.
and who are committed to the mission.
Yes.
We're just gonna let that sit. We'll let that marinate. Go ahead.
And so the good thing is that, you know, when I realized, and all of this is going to come together, I promise. When I looked at not allowing our impact to stay where I am and allowing it to go out, I looked at the Red Crosses, I looked at the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, I looked at the YMCA, and I realized that their model is not about a person, it's about the team, it's about a machine. And so I said, you know what, I have to make sure that no matter what, if I'm here on the east side, the west side is getting fed. I have to make sure that we are petitioning the monthly reoccurring donations, because that's what the big boys are doing. That's that unrestricted income, so that we can continue to fight our way. And so that is why bringing on people, I'm not worried about that, because with one crew right now, for example, we have a paid driver who maintains positive control of the vehicle, and he also is marking off our geo tracking software so that our there's SMS alerts, just like Amazon, and actually marking off arrival, delivery, and departure. And the delivery assistant is taking the box and delivering it directly to the door. And so because of that, with the way that we built out, we're right now in 7 different zip codes, almost 150 homes every week, almost 1,800 pounds every week, and we're doing that with one crew. And so when we have the capacity to hit 125 homes within an 8-hour delivery period.
Wow!
So as we're scaling out in days, not in people. So now in a week, we can reach 650 homes with one delivery crew. They're paid all the time, so 2 new jobs. We own our vehicle, we own our produce, we own our entire logistical process. And so because of that, now we have the ownership and the say-so to not only dictate who's involved, but we also can say data-wise who we fed, when we fed them, what did we feed them, what was their response, because we're doing random surveys also. Make sure that they like the quality. And so all because we're end user focused, we have the ability to scale smartly, efficiently, but also making sure that we're keeping them in mind. You're talking about, you know, a Chick-fil-A who only works 6 days a week, and they're running the chicken market. And so, you know, that just goes back to doing something for a reason, or not doing something for a reason. So our organization, you know, it's about building smartly and understanding that since we already have a wholesale grocer contract, we own our vehicles, our delivery is paid. We're just in the process of, as we scale, getting them more hours, and we already have a set price point as an organization of it costs us $1,000 to provide a household with fresh fruits and vegetables for a year. That's it.
Okay.
So now the public, it's not about those private conversations. It's about the public knowing our number so that they can then be empowered to be effective and help us build. Most of the people that we brought in, or the people that have some of the foundations, they've seen us because we communicate robustly. We update Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram every day before 11 a.m. And so they see that. That's why I call them the dream team. And the dream team is empowered to go on our behalf and speak for us in rooms that we can't physically get in. And so we'll get that call from a potential donor from Tennessee or from California. And our messaging, as well as what we're saying in private, is exactly the same. We have that transparency.
That is another takeaway. The fact that your qualitative piece is there and you communicate it out to the public, that the transparency is there, your numbers speak for themselves. you have to remember the balance of the qualitative and the quantitative, because you are going to need to show it's to formal foundations, corporations that you're working with, but also to build that trust with the public. They
Yep.
need to be able to see where their money is going. You have done it in a way that's continually building on what you didn't necessarily start with. I keep emphasizing the fact that you don't have to start with all of that, that you can develop those metrics as you're doing the work. And then you can be communicating those metrics out to the people who are supporting and to potential supporters as you're doing the work. So that's what I love about Dion Chicago Dreams story. It is the transparency, but it's also that there is an iterative process to it, right? You started with what you needed to do now in order to meet part of the mission, and then you just kept developing and kept adding to it. And similar to the leadership journey, you don't need to start with everything figured out. We interviewed Aya, who said that one of her skills as a leader is that she doesn't have to have everything figured out for her organization to grow, that she intentionally in their strategic planning sets question mark, and then we're going to figure out the question mark as the year goes on. Because if you start with I know everything and how it's going to end, then you're not giving yourself space to figure out how things could be.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as a leader, you have to be, once you accept that you don't know,
Mm-hmm.
it's a beautiful process, because
Mm-hmm.
you have this unquenchable thirst to always learn and always apply, and always learn and always apply. And so it is not wrong for me to not know today. If I
Mm-hmm.
did nothing to try to know, then that shows more about me as a leader than not
Mm-hmm.
knowing. And so, when Elon Musk said, well, it's not about what school you went to.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean, it's about the knowledge, because it's out there.
Yeah.
You have to figure out, what you want to learn, and go figure out how to learn it. And so for me, um, I never accepted that we weren't going to be cash positive. I
Yeah.
never accepted that, oh, most nonprofits, that's one of the
Mm-hmm.
10 commandments. Most nonprofits, and I didn't care, because
Mm-hmm.
I said, one of my early tenets was, you know, feed the people, love the people, and remind the people it's about them,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm nothing without the residents that I serve. And I
Mm-hmm.
have to be nimble and flexible enough, not only as a leader, but as an organization, to know that I don't know everything, and know that need evolves. And so if
Mm-hmm.
I don't accept that, then I'm going to be
Mm-hmm.
a relic of the past, and I'm going to be trying to apply archaic approaches to a problem that has, already evolved beyond what I knew back then. And so
Mm-hmm.
um I'm not interested in making it look like I'm impactful. I decided that, what, when we started, it was the middle of the year. And early on, I realized, I said, we're not going to be competitive for a lot of, grants and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't apply. I didn't.
Yeah.
I said, you know what, we're gonna flesh out programming, so that our
Mm-hmm.
programming is so sound and our concept note is so compelling, that once they interact with all of our content, once they interact with all of our impact, once they go out, and once they see that
Mm-hmm.
everything that we're doing it every single day. That's what we wanted to do. We wanted to change the pace of
Mm-hmm.
leadership, of philanthropy, because it's so slow. It's so slow.
Mm-hmm.
But people are
Mm-hmm.
doing it every day. So why is hunger and its response, why is it event based? But why
Mm-hmm.
food insecurities response also event based? That's not, it
That's not, yeah.
should be programming based.
Mm-hmm.
So the only thing I do every day is, as a leader, I wake up, I do the work, I communicate it to all of our stakeholders, and stakeholders aren't just people who give money. It's also the residents. It's also, our social media following, all of the
Mm-hmm.
people, who smile and say good job. All of our stakeholders are we're required to report to them, just like we're required to report to the board. And so,
Yes.
after communicating that, I just spend the rest of the day throwing Hail Marys, because I truly believe that if I can get anybody to look at our little sandcastle on the beach over here, they'll realize
Mhm.
that next time they look at it, it's going to be like 7 more sandcastles, because
Mhm.
we built out that infrastructure that's not only sustainable, but we're also sustaining before you come into our picture. So you're coming into our world, and you're going to get the truth. We're going to show you how this is the future of food insecurity, because it's the only approach that not only empowers the community, but treats them like they deserve, which is,
Mhm.
everybody deserves quality.
Yes.
Everybody.
Yes.
And back in the day, you remember in the
Yes.
early in the late 90s, we all thought that Walmart or Target couldn't coexist. But what did
Uh-huh.
they do? They changed
Mhm.
their brand positioning. And so
Yeah.
we're going to focus on quality. Not saying Walmart isn't quality, but
But
we're
mhm.
talking about their ability to take the market share
Mhm.
in the brand positioning approach that they wanted. And so I said, okay, whoever's doing it this way, they can do that. Whoever can do it this
Yeah.
way, they can. But what we're going to do, we're going to make sure that every piece of produce that we provide is brand new, so that we never have to question it. We never have to worry about quality. And also, the people who receive it feel like we
Mhm.
love them. They feel like they're empowered. They feel like we're treating them like everybody else. And that's all you want.
Mhm. There is the continual, what problem are you trying to solve?
Yeah.
In every decision that you've talked about making, it
Yes.
always comes back to what
Yes.
problem are you trying to solve? And as a leader of an organization, that is basically your guiding star. And
Yes.
if you lose sight of what problem you're trying to solve, then you're going to allow people to pull you in different directions that take you away from the reason you're leading to begin with. So I appreciate that. As you're speaking, I'm listening, I'm like, yeah, I can pinpoint it back.
Yep.
This is the problem that Dion started with wanting to solve, and every decision that he's making or he's made is solving it.
Yep.
And like you said, it's also the decisions that you're not making. So I know that there are certain things that you said no to,
Yeah. Oh,
or were like, nope, that door stays closed,
oh yeah. Oh
because
yeah.
you knew that it would shift you away from the problem that you needed to be solving.
Oh
So,
yeah. There's two things. I'll tell you this: as an organization,
mhm.
there are two doors that pretty much aren't opening unless it makes sense. The first thing is that we don't take donated produce.
Mm,
I think it's very, very important that not only do we stabilize the quality, but we can't allow everybody else to dictate our logistical picture, and also
mhm,
dictate what quality is to the recipient. That is not fair. And
mhm.
so if we're end user focused, then it's not up to us to decide. One of the most affluent neighborhoods in Chicago is Streeterville, and it's north
Okay,
of downtown. And
okay.
there is we made news earlier in the year where there's a 30-year age gap between Inglewood and Streeterville, the biggest in the nation. And
30
so,
years. Wow.
yes,
Okay.
so what I stumbled upon after I read that is, sometimes you just say something, and you're like, wow, that's kind of amazing.
Yeah.
But I said, a banana that's considered old in Streeterville should not be treated as if it's new in Inglewood. So from there, I said, no, we're gonna buy it, because we're gonna make sure that this quality is always there. We're gonna make sure that that love is always there. We're gonna make sure that that appreciation for the recipient is always there. And then, from the last thing, which is a little bit touchy, I I don't
Go
like
ahead.
I don't like volunteerism. Um,
Okay.
and so,
Please talk a little bit more about that. Yep.
of course, so when early on, when I started applying for grants,
Hmm.
a lot of things that I noticed about the application process is that a lot of these questions on the application um are, what's the word I'm looking for? They're catch 22s. And
Hmm.
so we're talking about,
Can you talk a little bit about in
yeah.
what way?
Oh,
Yeah.
of course. So when we're talking about volunteerism, right? We're
Okay.
talking about volunteerism, and everybody's, well, okay, what about your volunteer base?
Yeah.
How many volunteers you have? I don't want any, because that's defrauding my community. If we're in a community
Mhm.
that in a capitalist society,
Mhm.
that is the bottom 10% out of 77 neighborhoods and one of the largest metropolitan areas in the country, that has a
Mhm.
sub $20,000 average household income, that is
Wow. Okay.
also a food desert, that is also over 30% unemployed. How can they afford to volunteer? How can my volunteers look like my residents or be my residents if I at some point want to pay myself for doing this work, but then
Mhm.
don't pay my residents for doing
Not.
it with me? And so from there, I said, no, we're not going to do that.
Mhm.
Everybody will be paid. And that's why our delivery crew is paid, because
Yeah.
that gives them a commitment. That
Mhm.
shows them that we care about them, but we also won't allow them to defraud their family while doing a great work.
I know that's not the work that you're doing,
Yeah,
but that does connect to the food insecurity because if you were choosing to take advantage, and let's call it what it is, it
of
would have
course.
been taking advantage
Yes.
of the people in the community that will probably need your services,
Yes.
and you're asking them to take time away that they probably would have had a second job or a third job or a fourth job
Yes.
to be able to go deliver. We're not saying that you can't volunteer. We're saying that we understand the data around the community that we support. And to do anything else but to pay them a living wage to do this work would be taking advantage. I know that's not your core mission, but it
Yeah.
aligns perfectly. They would have needed your service and you would have been helping them one way, then cheating them another. I absolutely love the thought behind why you want to make sure that it's not volunteers, but that
Yeah.
you're going to be paying the community who's serving the community that you're
Yeah.
serving.
Yep, but not just that. I've had companies, reach out, and this is just part of that. I've had companies
Mm-hmm.
reach out, and because my background is public relations,
Mm-hmm.
communications, and photography and all of that good stuff. I've had organizations reach out and companies reach out. Hey, we
Mm-hmm.
want to volunteer with you, and what day can we come? And I have to be honest with them, and I say no. Number one, I don't. I'm not going to use this as a photo op
Mm-hmm.
for my residents, where
Mm-hmm.
there's a quick cleanup and then they never see you again. Number
Yeah.
two, I'm I'm I'll be honest up front, everybody listening, I am really in the trenches. So it's dangerous. I'm not gonna try to take 20 or 30 professionals
Mm-hmm.
to an area where I cannot guarantee their safety, because that is where I am.
Interesting. Yeah.
I am where my people needs me to be. And so I
Mm-hmm.
would be irresponsible to assume that everybody else has to respect the fact that they're there,
Yeah.
because everybody's just trying to survive. And so
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to volunteerism, it's not just our residents, but it's also
Mm-hmm.
we're doing it in a smart way. For example, I have a Eventbrite of our Halloween event where it's tricking our treaters, where we
Mm-hmm.
actually, our organization provides the candy. We just need
Okay.
people to come out in costume and help us deliver it door to door so our kids can stay safe this year.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
that
Yeah.
is what volunteering is. Sometimes it's the
Mm-hmm.
presence. You don't need to come and do something for pity. You don't need to
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
and do something that you don't feel, because a lot of times these volunteers, sometimes they also have feelings about if something is working, and they'll go
Mm-hmm.
against it and never say anything.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're there, they're thinking, "Oh, this is not going to work," but they never verbalized it to have a dialogue. And so I
Yeah.
think our organization, where we're different, is that it's okay not to know. And it's
Mm-hmm.
okay if you come to us to have an open dialogue, because also there are some people who have never seen Inglewood, who've never been in a black neighborhood. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
they just have questions, that hard questions that they want to ask. And we have to make sure we're creating an environment where we
Mm-hmm.
truly believe that everybody has good in them. Because that's what I believe.
Yeah.
Wake up.
Yeah. Same.
I don't think anybody wakes up and say, I'm going to be a supervillain. You know what I mean?
Nope.
I don't think it is. I
well,
think
well,
well, a
that's your
couple,
bane.
right? And so, I the only thing I do is I wake up and I look at the hand that I'm dealt. And
Mhm.
do you play spades? Are you familiar?
Why you gotta call me
Okay,
out in
I'm
front
sorry.
of the community though?
Okay. So look,
Please
Uno.
gather around me, the other Black people who have been shunned.
Okay. Do you know how to play Uno?
Yes, I
Okay, so
will drop
right,
drop
we'll use
for it.
Uno.
Yeah.
So the approach that we have as a society right now is everybody is dealt their hand in Uno.
hmm
And when you get that hand, a vast majority of society does one or two things. The first thing is they look at their hand and they wish they had draw fours or wish they had more.
hmm
The second thing they do is they worry about what everybody else has.
Yeah.
So the last option for them is always, I guess I'll play my hand. But for
hmm
me, I'm the opposite. Because if
Yeah.
I tip my hand every day, if my strongest card is a skip, then I don't draw four is not in my cards to play. I
Yeah.
am gonna hold this skip and I'm gonna play it to the best of my ability. And I think that's
hmm
what it is about being a leader is you have to have those Hail Marys that you're throwing every day because you
hmm
always have to lead and you always have to progress and you always have to make sure you're positioning your organization or your department or your team in
hmm
the best possible position. But when it comes to the hand you're dealt, are you playing it the best you possibly could? Or are you sitting there spending too much time wishing it was better? Are you spending too much time wondering what Michelle's hand is? It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I
hmm
just don't think that anybody else exists outside of my network at all.
hmm
I'm just
hmm
so laser focused. Why? Because I know that if 5,000 hours is the marker for mastering something, I'm going to get
hmm
5,000 as quick as possible.
hmm
Going. I'm not going to stop at 5, but
hmm
I'm going to master food so that
hmm
when it comes to tutoring, I can find that person that mastered tutoring, and then now
Yeah.
we can create this nice teamed approach of different orgs and allies,
hmm
colleagues that have committed to mastering that problem that they set out to master in the first place.
You have your portion of it. You know that there are other people doing that work. And eventually you're going to connect because the people that you're serving, if they need fresh food, they're probably going to need the tutoring. They're probably going to need the other aspects. But you need to focus on having that work be as excellent as possible. And then you can build from there. Learning seems to be a constant theme in terms of what you have done to set yourself up for success and all of that preparation. When you think about the work that you did, is there anything that you would have done differently now that you have more insight into that you thought would have worked better? I figured you wouldn't have.
No,
Yeah.
I think it's disrespectful to all of the meat and potatoes that I've gathered along the way. You can't
hmm
cherry pick and say, "Oh, if I go back, I would do this." No, the beautiful thing is that me being a disabled veteran and battling with PTSD and going through the gambit of past suicide attempts and things like that. I'll tell you this: I was at that point where I felt I didn't matter, and so because of that feeling
hmm
is a consistent battery for me because I'm playing with the church's money right now because I don't
hmm
supposed to be here. And so now
hmm
it's like, why do I have to tell somebody that if I go back, I would do something different? Does that make me seem like a stronger leader? Does that make them more comfortable in that I look back and say, no, because they didn't
hmm
expect a, a, a black man from the south side of Chicago to implement a programming and logistical model on the fly that has surpassed
hmm
50,000 pounds of brand new fruits and vegetables, and that within 16 months is on pace to bring in $450,000. He didn't
Yeah.
expect it. So I
hmm
I will not in any room that I be in go in there without the confidence of everything that I've done because a lot of these people in power have not done
hmm
what I've done.
The numbers are speaking for themselves. It's the impact in our sector. There is a lot of flash
Yeah,
first,
Yep.
I shouldn't say a lot, but there is a desire to put the flash first before the impact.
Of
Because
course.
if we're going to be real, the philanthropic community pulls out the flash first, even though they're asking for the data and for the metrics. But there are a lot of the smaller organizations that are doing the work, and that's their data and their metrics, but they're being ignored.
But that's why it's important for them to adjust. The one
Mm-hmm.
thing that I said, you're right, but I said I'm going to make our flash the
Mm-hmm.
data, and I'm going to
Yep.
make it in a way so that when they're done consuming the flash, they've consumed our data as well. And that's where
Mm-hmm.
smaller orgs have to evolve and
Yeah.
understanding that, okay, it's okay if you got ignored.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, are you going to keep getting ignored? Because as a
Mm-hmm.
leader and as a founder, I am compelled to always get better and find ways to get our impact out there. And so I do agree with you, but it's not all on the bigger orgs and the funders, because
Mm-hmm.
they've been conditioned that you know for smaller orgs there's flash,
Mm-hmm.
there's no substance.
Yeah.
And so the
Mm-hmm.
only thing I said, it was like, okay, we'll have that flash, but we'll also have that impact. We'll tell
We'll
our
show
own
it.
story.
Mm-hmm.
Relied on everybody else to tell their story, tell our story. They're not going to just willingly give up market share. That's crazy.
No. Yeah. We have about 10 minutes left, but I did want to come back to connection that you made directly with the community. For a lot of smaller organization, and you said it at the beginning, you were like, I saw those applications for the foundations. We weren't gonna do that. We're
No.
gonna come back, we're gonna focus on the work, we're not gonna worry about your funding. But you also didn't just go after the foundation. You said, let me talk to individual donors
Yes.
and connect with them. Can you just talk a little bit about your process for individual giving and really building relationship with communities and not necessarily only depending on foundations and corporations?
The first major purchase that we made as an org was,
Mm-hmm.
was retaining an accounting firm. So
Mm-hmm.
knowing what profit and loss statements are, knowing
Mm-hmm.
having your books balanced every month,
Mm-hmm.
filing a 990. I looked at, because I'm all about end user experiences. I looked at the
Yeah.
end user experience for a donor. How can
Mm-hmm.
we make it easy to motivate them to give?
Mm-hmm.
From that moment of them being motivated to them actually giving, it has to be
Yeah.
short. It has to be. And making sure that they can give in whatever way they want to give, they can. Legally being a 501c3 and being in good standing with the Secretary of State. So the ones that look us up, they'll see we're in good standing. The ones that
Mm-hmm.
want to donate directly from the website, because from our website, when you donate, you get the auto generated receipt so that you can then
Mm-hmm.
use that as a write-off. Have it a link tree on every social media platform, so everything that they would ask is in that link tree. Going to our
Mm-hmm.
website and not seeing something that's thrown together or free, but
Yeah.
spending that money to get it to represent us as an org, but to also understand that, okay, every question that you would ask in the donating process is there. What are we
Mm-hmm.
doing it? How often are we doing it? All the information is around. And what a lot of people don't know is that the reason why LinkedIn, I'll say LinkedIn and TikTok, their content is not based around immediacy. And so
Mm-hmm.
because of that,
Mm-hmm.
you create content, it can live on, and you'll
Absolutely.
interact with it at the most random point. And so
Yeah.
I dial back the immediacy of, oh, we need the money now. Focus on making content,
Mm-hmm.
why? Because it's so much content living out there that once
Mm-hmm.
they find one, they find another. If and when they want to give, it's easy to give. And so those relationships, I didn't come back to Chicago with any relationships. And coming into philanthropy, it's a very
Mm-hmm.
large
It's
community.
networked.
A lot
Yeah.
of people don't want to give up
Mm-hmm.
who their funders were.
Yeah.
But you know what? We're going to put it all out there.
Yeah.
And as I look and learn from the big ones, and also see a few things that the big organizations do that I don't like, I just make it easy. Because if it's about impact, we have impact. If it's
Yep.
about the cosign or who's in your network of prior funders, okay,
Uh-huh.
we built those up and we have an Ellen appearance and we have WGN and NBC,
Mm-hmm.
ABC, and things like that. But also the average donor loves to feel respected. They shouldn't be treated any different than a big donor. And so because of that, we have to make sure that the content they find and when they go, that
Mm-hmm.
process is the exact same as a grants manager at a foundation.
Do you hear that? Respecting your donors no
Yes.
matter their donation size. You stay in your wheelhouse a lot. Your wheelhouse is relationships. And you were like, I don't have connections to the big funders now, but there's nothing keeping me from connecting with the person from Tennessee, the person from Chicago, the person from New York, the person from Florida who's just like, this work is important and I'm going to support it. Okay, I can't get to the networked community there. Fine, we'll get to you.
Yeah.
But we're go directly to the people who can support this and who would support it. And then we're gonna build for them. And even when doors do open to the NBCs and to the Ellens, don't think I didn't realize you were just like, oh
Right.
yeah,
Exactly.
Ellen and the
Exactly.
NBCs.
And not
When
just
those
that.
doors open, we're still giving
Yeah.
you the exact same thing that I was giving the community who was supporting me from the very beginning, from the GoFundMe community. I didn't forget them just
Yeah.
because now the
Of
larger
course.
donors are open.
The anchor of that is that everybody at some point has felt like they didn't matter. In the donor focused, landscape,
Mhm.
it's so easy to see how larger foundations try to convince smaller orgs to ignore the small donor. So I just stopped focusing on the 5 million because the 5 million people will come, but I got to respect the 5
Yep.
because I'll never forget when one of our bigger donations came in. When I found out, who it was, they only had 100
Mhm.
followers on social media with no profile photo. And
Look at
so,
that. Mm.
like that, the only thing that taught me was that we just have to continue to respect and treat everybody well. That is, ingrained in the tapestry of our org. It's what will you be remembered for? How did you do it? And can you
Mhm.
sustain that? And a lot of times these smaller orgs can't sustain it because they're tap
Mhm.
dancing for big money that they're never going to get because they don't have their own voice.
I know that there are leaders who are coming. Differentiate between leaders and formalized leaders because anybody in whatever space that you're in, it can be a leader.
That's correct.
And the formalized leadership that we're doing this podcast for is the role of executive director, the role of CEO. But in every role that you have now, you have to understand what leadership role that you do play and to honor it in the same way that Dion honored it when his brother came up to him and said, what are you doing for your community? And he didn't have a title. He said, there was a need and I'm going to meet that need. And eventually he moved into the formalized title. But whether or not he had that formalized title, that leadership capacity was always there and he was always meeting a need. Even as you're in transition or you're preparing to become an executive director, to become a CEO, remember the position that you're in now and how you're leading now will translate to how you're going to be a leader later.
There is a quote from the Nonprofit Council. It says that nonprofits that are serious about their own sustainability will also be serious about planning for smooth and thoughtful transitions of leadership, as well as making sure their nonprofit is prepared for unexpected departures. Talk to us a little bit about what that quote means to you and how you're preparing your organization to outlive your leadership, how you're going to be when you think about bringing on future staff, preparing those people to be able to lead as well in the same thoughtful and respectful way that you do, where you honor your community.
Well, I think when it comes to those succession plans,
Mm-hmm.
that hinges on that leader's ability to believe that it can outlive them. And
Mm.
so early on, I would have, like I would say, like December, January, I would have shuddered at the thought of, me not being the executive director. But it's funny because my shift
Mm-hmm.
happened around June.
Interesting.
Okay, I said, okay, cool. I'm going to bring people on and things like that. And then ultimately
Hmm.
within 2 to 3 years, I'm going to bring on an executive director.
Can you
And
talk a little bit about what shifted for you in June?
I always believed that I was good at this, but I said, in order for this to be what we need it to be, I
Hmm.
I need this to grow. And when it grows, title you might hold might shift or your responsibility
Hmm.
might change. And so for me, it will go from day to day, the executive director role
Hmm.
will shift more to the overall, management, of the board and making sure that we're still hitting on those things. And so,
Yeah.
it's about teaching the team that you bring on about scope. And it's teaching them that scope of not only the scope of their position, but
Hmm.
also the scope of how they're addressing the problem as an organization. And so with our ability to transition into being the solution for food
Hmm.
insecurity and changing how people respond to it, then in order for that to happen, I know that, and not only that, I also want to give somebody else that opportunity. Because
Hmm.
for us, it comes when somebody has been in philanthropy 40 years and then they get the
Yeah.
distinguished position.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
no, it's about, somebody who just might have gotten their degree, or somebody who
Hmm.
has a record of success even over 2 or 3 year period.
Hmm.
They're the right person for this position. I have to make sure that
Yeah.
I'm not blocking that. I tell people, when it comes to philanthropy is treated like a lifetime achievement award when it should be approached like sales. It's about what have you done lately, and it should be about
Hmm.
that impact and not about your resume. Your resume is
Yes.
nice, but
Uh-huh.
what about where you are and what you can bring and where you can take this organization? And
Hmm.
I would be remiss if I didn't allow myself the capacity and the grace and space to
Hmm.
transcend where I am now and allow
Hmm.
this beautiful thing to continue to be beautiful and grow, and make sure that we have the planning and the structure in place so that as it's growing, that plan is coming into fruition, and it's graceful, and it's just okay, and everybody's cross trained, so that God
Cross
forbid
train.
happen
Hmm.
to me,
Hmm.
next man up, because life is like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But we
Yeah.
have to be proactive and not reactive when we're thinking about cross train.
Helpful to hear from you that you're thinking about it. And it's also helpful to hear there isn't a limitation to you have to be this number of years in. That's a metric that we put around when do you qualify. I get it in one sense. Doing the work day in and day out does help you become more qualified. And the more that you do it, the more you learn from it, and the more that you can leverage what you're learning and build from there. But
And
there's
time, I
also
would I would push back on that though. I don't think
okay.
time does not directly relate to time spent doing job. You know what I mean?
No,
So and
absolutely. Yep.
so the
Mhm.
that is the thing that has permeated the entire job market, where
Mhm.
we made it solely about this amount of time, or and I'll be honest with you. You know what I do?
Mhm. Yeah.
Go and I look at the job posting of like an ED, right? And the org, and I'll look at the org and their impact, and it'll, as far as financially, they're
Mhm.
smaller than me, and they've been around for 10 years, and
Yeah.
they have
Yeah.
a master's degree. And I said,
There. Yeah.
oh, but you're not in social services, you're not in that. So where's
Yeah.
the direct correlation between that time spent? Oh well, you should have managed, been an ED for 10 years before. And so we just have to
Yeah.
make sure that when it comes to our succession plan, when it comes to our ability
Mhm.
to scale, when it comes to our ability to evolve, that if we're
Mhm.
doing it with purpose. If we're not
Yep.
doing it with purpose, and I admit it's very hard as a human to, once they make you serve 25 years, to not make the next person do 25 years.
That is dumb. That is the
I
worst thing.
I
Like,
know.
we are not
It's
turning around and making
but
people do nonsense
but
just to do nonsense.
but you
Yeah.
we were also human, with
Yeah.
flaws. And that's one of the
Yeah.
flaws of it. They made us take this long route, and we
Mhm.
we turn around and we don't realize that it shifted our joy that
Yeah.
came with doing the job, and now we're looking back and making that person, do
Yeah.
that long route, and that might not be for everybody. And so I
No.
just try to make sure that, okay, we have a realistic approach to training, we have a realistic approach
Mhm.
to skills, and then we look at them at each person as their own leader and allow
Yep.
them enough space to just wiggle and learn themselves, because some of the stuff you just got to learn, like, and do. And once you
Learn and do.
yeah,
Yep.
once you do
Mhm.
it, you'll be sitting there after one day of putting up like high flying cable wires. And then after one day, somebody comes in like, well, this is my first day. And you tell them immediately, hey, look, listen, yesterday, okay, I was up
Uh,
there, and I want you to know, oh, we got to get back to making that giving and receiving
mhm.
of perspective and of information fun again, so that people's hearts aren't hardened out by these succession plans. It doesn't take 9
Mhm.
years to learn how to
No.
run an org. It doesn't take
No.
75 sign-offs, you know what I mean, 9 interviews and a panel discussion and a dissertation. No, ultimately it's just about when something is right or wrong.
Yeah.
That is the beautiful thing about the time we're living in now, is that the worker is feeling empowered, and that's one thing
Mhm.
I love about now and living in this time now, is that they're not going for anything. I'm not saying that everybody has a plan, but
Yep.
people don't like to be mistreated, and so we
Oh, crazy, right?
yeah,
That's
you know what I
insane.
mean. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't want to work
Okay.
12 hours for $9. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And when it comes to always being prepared, cross training, allowing the
Mhm.
person to do that job or get some type of exposure, and then
Mhm.
trusting that they want to be the best at it, because everybody
Yeah.
wants to do a good job. And so
Mhm.
I just would hope that these leaders and these organizations, they're making sure that they're allowing their team to really like walk into that realized potential and just do it. And even if they fall, when they when a baby falls, they always look up at their parent. And
Mhm.
sometimes you
Yeah.
can't panic. Sometimes you gotta
Yep.
look calm, because then
Yep.
they'll take that resolve and they'll try again. But if you look back and your leader and your ED is panicking, or they take the reins back, that's gonna
Mhm.
ultimately stunt that succession plan and stunt the overall ability of your staff.
This podcast is around hearing from people and their leadership journey and what that transition was, them from, being leaders to formalized leaders in the social sector. But you are right that there are things that you're going to learn by doing. And most of it you're going to learn by doing. You're going to learn, the balance sheet. You're going to learn cash positive. You're going to learn board development, all of that. There are going to be classes and you're going to do the practical, right?
Yep.
But there are instinctual things that you just cannot learn until you're in the work. What was it like when you first started, and then when you became the formalized leader of the organization? What are some of those distinct things that you weren't prepared for, that you were like, I could not have prepared for this?
You know what? I'm gonna actually take that a different way.
Okay.
I always want to empower people, because that's something about this uh,
Mhm.
philanthropy that is not empowering enough. And so
Mhm.
partially, yes, I would say, it's not empowering enough. But to answer that, I was as ready as I would have ever been. I try not to think that I know everything,
Mhm.
but in my humanity, because I respect the industry, because I respect the people, because I respect time, and because I
Mhm.
love everybody, I am more than I am well equipped to do whatever I put my mind to. When it comes to going from that that ambiguous role to a formalized role,
Mhm.
it- as long as that person continues to learn, as long as that person, you know enough,
Mhm.
you receive that formalized title.
Mhm.
Now you need to know enough the next day, because you're one day into the job.
It's an
That's it.
iterative process.
There's some things that I'm great at that it didn't take 45 years to hone. And there's some things that I haven't encountered. And once I
Mhm.
do, I pivot. I'm not the same guy.
And that, yep. Well, Dion, thank you for joining us today, and we want to make sure that we're supporting you. So, how can we support you? Where can we find you? Connect with you?
On every social media site at Dion's Chicago Dream. Our website is www.dionchicagodream.com. You can email us, Dion Chicago Dream at Gmail. I love dialogue. I love, talking and meeting with different leaders, and I think that's important. You're as a leader, you're only as good as that nucleus around you. So, I've been lucky enough to, when I have chances to, talk to you or talk to Kahina or touch base with Abe or Maria or, even people here. I don't care about the scope of your job. I care about your ability as a leader. And if you have something that, you're good at or great at, then, I try to just, pick your brain and you can pick mine. But that's what leadership is. Leadership is always honing those skills.
So thank you again, Dion, from Dion Chicago Dream. We appreciate you making the time to be on Road to Lead, and we'll see you next time.
Till next time.
All right. Bye.
Bye.